everybody. This is JT from the Buckball Podcast. We got a lot to talk about today. Mostly the Redskins game. We got some press conference notes to get to, some kicker news to get to. We might even get to a little bit of the Giants game, see how it goes. But I have a special guest on with me, someone who does some really, really awesome work. I'm happy to be talking to. You can find him at Real Bucs Talk. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself and let you guys know what you got going on. Michael, go ahead and talk to the people.
Yes, this is Michael Plus of Real Bucs Talk. Happy to be on this show, and we're on Twitter and we just do some, game film, and we have our own website as well at realbuckstalk.com. Some articles up there, but really it's just getting into the film, and then we've just recently started our own podcast as well. So we're just avid Bucs fans that want to see this team do well, just like everyone else, and it's fun. It's fun seeing how this team operates, but then trying to tell the why of why this doesn't work or how this works, and et cetera. So it's exciting.
Yeah, so you do a lot of film breakdown, and that's something I was always been an avid Bucs fan, but since I started doing this podcast, I really started to get into watching film, even though sometimes you don't always know what you're looking at, and you really have to study the game of football. And I always tell people, when you watch the broadcast, even as a fan or someone who hosts a show or even an expert, sometimes you sit there and you wonder, okay, why did he call that play? Like, that was stupid. That didn't work. But you have to go back and you have to look at the stats and you have to watch the film, and it kind of gives you a better idea. To me, like, a football game is kind of like a book. You look at the cover of a book and you see what it is, but until you open it and like, let's just say the score is like it was Sunday, it was like 16-3 or something like that. If you just look at it like that, you could say the Bucs suck. But until you go look at the film and really dive in and see actually what happens, you can't really get a good analysis until you do that. So I encourage all fans to do that, and I appreciate what you do, because you always break it down in the all 22 and the condensed version, which that's what I just watched recently, just to kind of refresh my memory. So I appreciate what you do, and you guys do a lot of great work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said. I mean, it's really just going into why and how, and like just trying to figure out. Okay, so this play didn't work. Okay, well let's look into why it didn't work, or what they were trying to accomplish. So
right.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely helpful, and it's I encourage everyone, if they have access to it. I mean, it's definitely it's good to get knowledge, and it helps you learn the game a little bit better. So
Yep. You start to see trends and you see things, and sometimes you think, okay, like, man, that was just a bad play. But if you really look at it and break it down, like sometimes when you're watching the all 22, you can spend, I mean, the all 22 is almost 2 hours long, or it might be over 2 hours sometimes. But sometimes with me, it takes me almost 4 hours to watch the all 22, which is hard because, it's such a time consuming thing, because you might sit there and watch one play almost 10 times just to kind of look and see what's going on. Like, man, if he would have had a 0.2 seconds longer, he could have hit him, and things like that. And then it kind of opens your eyes to see, okay, maybe this team isn't as bad as they look on the broadcast, because it's a whole different angle, for one. And two, it's like, man, if you just do like one or two things here and there different, it could be a whole different ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the margin for error is like so small, and it just really shows. It shows like how 11 guys really need to be working as one, because if one guy messes up, then pretty much the play is dead, and that's really what's been going on with the Bucs. It's one guy out of.
That's what's been going on with our offensive line also.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's just been, okay, one guy's missing here, or this guy's missing, and then you can't run the football, or quarterback doesn't have time to either step up or look at his options, or it's just on the quarterback and he's making a bad throw. So it's a combination of things where, if these guys just do what they're supposed to do, I mean, we'd be fine. But it's it's so small for error. Like you have to be on point and understand what your job is. And
Yep.
unfortunately, the Bucs just they haven't been doing a good job of that this year at all. I mean, just so up and down, inconsistency.
Yep. Consistency is one of the biggest things that we'll probably end up talking about today or in the rest of the year. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. I got some notes here, some show notes. Obviously the big news was, we released Chandler Catanzaro and
Mm-hmm.
we pretty much immediately signed Cairo Santos. So I kind of just I went back and I added up all his stats from his career at so far. And mind you, he's had 3 or 4 years where he only kicked 8 or 9 times for whatever reason that was. But this is his stats from his career going forward until now being a Buccaneer. And I hope he says he doesn't believe in a curse, and I don't either. But sometimes I feel like this team there's a Matt Bryant curse. Or there's something going on. I don't like to be that I don't like to be that skeptical, but it's just hard to believe that we haven't been able to shore up that position in so long. And then on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
we end up depending on the kicker in a lot of games. Even though we have this high-powered vertical offense, the kicker is still a big part of the game and NFL game in general. So Cairo is 27 of 29 from 20 plus, 36 of 39 from 30 plus, 23 of 30 from 40 plus, and 7 of 13 from 50. But this is the thing that is most important to me. He is 132 out of 138 on extra points. And that is just something that, you know, I know they just moved the kickoff or the extra point back to where it's pretty much like a 30-35 yarder. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's still when a kicker, an NFL kicker, is in that range, it still should be kind of automatic, even though the stats show that even the best kickers are struggling with it. But it still
Right.
seems to me like the Bucs just missed extra points all the time. It doesn't matter who it is, and I'm hoping that he can turn this thing around, man. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main thing is just getting consistency from that position, but it seems like whoever the Bucks bring in, like they just forget how to kick the football. You bring in like Nick Folk 2 years ago, and he had a great year the year before. Same thing with Cannizzaro, and it's like they come to Tampa and then they forget how to kick the ball. So it just doesn't really make sense. And we really just had some bad luck at the position. You know, you had a Patrick Murray who looked like he was going to be the guy, and then for whatever reason they just let him go.
Right.
So it's like it's just so up and down, and that's been pretty much the team in general. But yeah, I mean, hopefully Cairo can just give us some consistency and be steady back there. I could care less if he's missing from 50 out, 50 yards out. As long as he's
Yeah.
making those 30 to
Those
40
those are
yarders, I
those
mean,
are yeah, those are desperation kicks sometimes regardless. Like end of half
right.
kicks or need to win the ball game kicks.
Hmm.
But and the funny thing is Cat and Zero, whenever he was signed, he had signs of declining, and there are stats out there. A couple of guys
Right.
that still do some Bucks analysis pointed that out. But the whole thing was they were saying, okay, Catanzaro was kicking up in New York with the weather and it's really windy and things like that. So come down to Tampa, it should be better. And there was a decline in his 40 to 50 range, but he's missing extra points and kicks in a good range in the
Right.
30s and things like that. So that's not really an excuse, but at the same time, it shouldn't be one of those things to where you're talking about your football team. You should be talking about like, okay, the defense or the offense, but special teams seems to be a really big problem in Tampa. And a lot of people don't think special teams really matter. But man, when you have a problem at a position to where sometimes the offense can't get that extra 30, 40 yards, the kicker is very important. And I'm hoping that Cairo can bring us some luck. I'm tired of every time a kicker lines up, I'm wishing the Bucks just went for it, whether it was on 4th and 15 or 4th and 1. I just having that confidence and knowing that, okay, this guy's got us. That's what I want. So
Yeah, absolutely.
what I want to do is I'm gonna go ahead and get started here with the kind of the press conference. I took some notes in the press conference, and obviously Dirk said that he took the play calling back. Um, and obviously when he said that, it was kind of shocking because I didn't think Monken was doing a bad job, whether it was Jameis or it was Fitz. They both have had their fair share of turnovers, and the offensive line has not done them any favors. And people are wide
Right.
open all the time. I mean, if you go back and watch film, you'll see it. But the game plan was actually pretty good. I mean, there was just bad breaks and people were open. And like I said, one turnover was in the red zone, which ended up being an interception. I mean, the interception happened pretty much in the red zone by Josh Norman. They had the
Right.
fumble, the two missed kicks. The Jacquez fumble wasn't in the red zone, I don't believe, but it ended up popping out and they recovered it in the red zone. They had a turnover with OJ. Fitz was trying to force it in, kind of. That was an interception. Then you get the bad Jensen snap when they were driving for points pretty much close to the end zone, red zone, sorry. And it just seemed like every drive was doomed just about any
Mm.
way they wanted to go at it. But my question was, why did Dirk take away play calling? And he said it was to control the clock. But when he
Yeah.
said that, I was thinking, okay, that usually means you want to control the clock for a high-powered offense you're fixing to face, and you want to try to keep some possessions. But I don't think our run game is built for that kind of game plan. And plus, we have a really vertical offense. So I was kind of puzzled by when he said things like that. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, I was a little shocked by it because I mean, yeah, we did do that. We had time of possession. We had like over 30 minutes, but it's like, okay, that's great, but you need to score points. I mean, this league is about scoring points, and
Hmm.
you have weapons to do that. And it just seemed like, yeah, we were getting yards and stuff like that, and things were working, but you gotta you gotta find ways to get the ball to your best players. And for OJ Howard to only have two targets, that's not good enough. And then Peyton Barber was actually running the football successfully, but you only give him 13 carries. If you're going to be ball control, then you need to at least feed him more, especially in the second half when it's a game that's not really out of hand, and the Redskins offense is really not gonna um, score quickly. At least that's what it looked like. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It was mind-boggling. I mean, and then once they got in the red zone, the play design and having guys just run four vertical routes, just it frustrates me because like I see there's just so much more this team could do, but for whatever reason they just continue to stick with their game plan as far as
Hmm.
what he wants to run offensively.
Hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you said, I think a lot of it was just a lot of bad breaks. I mean, like we said earlier, 11 guys working as one, and one guy's making a mistake, and it's costing us. So, I mean, that's what I would sum it up to.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned when you go back and watch a condensed version or the all 22 or whatever, Peyton Barber runs so damn hard. I mean, he turns something into nothing or turns nothing into something all the time. But
Right.
The thing about the Bucks running game is, I've been a big proponent of I want balance on this team.
Mhm.
I just want balance because if you go through and you look through the NFC South, who we have to contend, obviously you have to win your division. These teams are very balanced in their run pass percentage. At the end of the
Right.
year last year, the Bucks were at 60 something percent and 30 something percent run pass. And that's fine if it's working, but if it's not working, then that's a problem. And my whole
Mhm.
deal is it seems to me like when I watch this team, whether they're ahead or whether they're behind, because obviously when you're behind, you're not running the ball as much. But even in games where it's still close in the beginning, I feel
Right.
like this Bucks team only runs the ball enough times to get that like 12, 13-yard run, and then they go back to the pass. And that's like
Yeah.
it's almost a good problem to have is because their passing game can be so successful when it's executed right, but
Right.
the run game could be just as big of a help to the passing game if they just let it, if they just keep trying to pound that ball. If they just keep trying to
Mhm.
pound that ball. And like I said, it's weird. It's like they'll run it two or three times. You get 1, 2 yards here. Okay, they'll keep running it, right? Then they'll get that 12, 15-yard run. Peyton Barber will just, run his ass off. And then it's okay, back to the pass. It was like, man,
Yeah.
you had them on their heels, and it just, I don't know, it just seems to me sometimes, and I'm not going to say that I could be an offensive coordinator in the NFL or anything like that. And we don't put in the hundreds of hours these guys do in the meeting rooms and the practice fields, and who knows, that might just be their game plan. But when you watch
Mhm.
teams around the league, and then obviously your team very well because you watch them all the time, you see how well they're doing with the run pass balance and how well it works, and you just wonder why your team can't do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's just, yeah, it's mind-boggling to me because like it just seems like there's no like setting up anything as far as what they want to get accomplished as far as a run to pass, ratio like you're saying. That you always hear the sayings of let's pass the ball to set up the run or vice versa, and it
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't seem like there's any of that, or at least it's not done consistently. Um, and that and that shows that's the problem with this team. Like it just seems like they can't do anything consistently
Mm-hmm.
for 4 quarters, and that's been the problem. Like they so far this season they haven't played 4 quarters, and that's a
Yep.
big issue, and that's why on my podcast, we talk about this coaching staff, and we're not big on them because it just seems like there's no direction as far as offense or defense.
Right.
And when you have guys talented like we do on offense, and yes, offensive line is up and down, and that causes issues too. But still, I mean, you should be able
But
to.
teams find a way to work around that throughout the league
Yeah,
all the time. You
absolutely.
know what I mean? So it's like it's kind of like, okay. I mean, of course, you have to really do some research into every other team and find out why it is working. But I mean, that's not the fans' job to do. We just see it happening. That should be the guys who get paid millions to do. And I
Right.
don't, and the funny thing to me is when I watch this Bucks offense, do you ever see them run many formations out of besides, let's say, three wide or four wide? There's never really any formations. I mean, hardly ever where they're like in bunch formation or something to where
Mhm.
you got to get the defense all sucked up to the middle of the field. You know what I mean? Do you ever
Right.
really see that? Because you watch film a lot, and I noticed that too.
Hmm.
It's like you always are spreading the ball out, and that's good because it works. But
Right.
to me, those bunch formations where you could get somebody running out, like hit a corner route or like a seam, and the defense is sucked up to the middle. That seems to me like it would help our running game, just by
Hmm.
necessity, because teams will get used to, okay, are they running out a bunch? Are they passing out a bunch? You know what I mean? It seems like if you got people like four wide and you're running the ball every time, I mean, if the fans can kind of see that that's a tendency, I kind of wonder
Hmm.
sometimes why the Bucks do it, because I know that these defensive coordinators and players get paid millions to watch the same film we do. And I think if sometimes I feel like if it's that obvious to me, then it's that obvious to them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, what I see on film is like we joke about it, and we're like every time Anthony Auclair's in the game, it's like okay, we're either gonna run it to the left or right. It just
Mm-hmm.
depends on the
Mm-hmm.
variation.
Yep.
So I see that often. Uh, yes, I mean, we're dominant as far as three wide, four wide, 11 personnel, and then you have your 10 personnel, which is a four wide set, which is common, which is fine because we need to get our best players on the field, and our
Yep.
strengths are definitely our receivers and the tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would like to see, and
But
like you said, I mean,
sometimes your strengths make it your weakness because it makes it kind of obvious, kind of what you're doing.
yeah,
That was my
for
whole point.
sure.
That was really my
No, no,
whole
you're
point. Like, go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're good. You're absolutely right, and that's why we talk about it. I'm like, you got to show some type of motion or, and they did some of that this past week with Adam Humphries, going in motion and running play action off of that, which is good. And that's another thing they need to do more is run more play action because they're so successful when they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Any type of play action, it does so much because it automatically just holds those linebackers in place. So it's just little things like that. And yes, variation of four wide and three wide, whether you're running stack formations or just different types of plays. And that's another thing I get frustrated with, like Deshaun Jackson. Like we saw him this past week where he just runs a quick stop route and he's wide open and it's easy yards. So that's another thing like they just need to take advantage of because the looks are going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Dirk does catch hell, whether it's Dirk or whether it's Todd Monken or whether whoever it is. They catch hell when this offense does bad. But I mean, sometimes when you go back and watch the film, you're like, damn, he's right. I mean, like for whatever reason, this player didn't get thrown to, but sometimes you see it plays on a field where a guy's open and you're like, man, that's 6 points. That's 6
Mm-hmm.
points. And he catches a lot of heat. And honestly, he holds his or he keeps his cool pretty well sometimes. And I've been in a criticism or a critic of him too sometimes. Like especially let's just say like it's like 3rd and 1 and you got 4 wide receiver sets. Like those kind of plays kind of get under my skin, especially when they don't work. You know what I mean?
Right,
But I
right,
mean, he's not wrong when he sat up there in that press conference and said, "Look, I took back play calling, fine, and you can. If we lost the game 16-3, you can say what you want, but guys are open, and it's
yeah,
just crazy to me. And what I kind of want to talk about next is the box score of this game. If you didn't look at the score of the game at all, just looked at straight stats and drives and we held them to 170 passing, 117 rushing. Like, okay, so here's the drives that we had. First drive, interception. Second, punt. Third, missed field goal. Fourth, made field goal. Fifth, ran out of clock. Um, Missed field goal, interception, fumble, ran out clock. Those are the drives that we had with 500 yards of offense, holding Alex Smith to 170 passing and the running game to 117 rushing. Now, if you didn't look at the score, you would think the Bucs won that game. But if you look at the
right.
drives, you understand why. And my
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing is, like you said earlier, this team can't put a consistent 4 quarters together of let's just say they're not all on the same page, but I mean, you put in a good game between the offense and the defense. They can't put in 4 quarters of a game together. How are they supposed to string together 1, 2, 3, 4 wins? You know what I mean? Like good teams can
Mm-hmm.
string together some wins. It seemed like this Bucks team can just completely have a meltdown for 2 or 3 games. Then another game, the offense can play great, the defense can play horrible. Then the defense will play great, the offense will play horrible. And
Yeah.
it's just it's just mind-boggling, like you said, that the first half defense, like, okay, let's just say like the Atlanta game, and let's just say the
Mm-hmm.
Panthers game. We were getting damn near blown out, and the offense wasn't doing bad. The defense caught on in the second half, and then it seems like the
Right.
offense is catching on, but it's too late. They can't never be
Mm-hmm.
on the same page at the same time.
Right. And that's why I pointed to coaching because if these guys are not being pointed into the right direction, then how are you supposed to get better as a team and start being more consistent, start winning games? And that's why, unfortunately, I feel like it's going to be time to start over again, once again, and that's a sad thing. But I mean, it's going to happen when you have so much talent, and we do have talent on this team, and they're being told to do this and do that, and for whatever reason you can't figure it out to put it together, for at least consistently 4 quarters. Like it's just it just shouldn't happen. Like
Yeah.
you have a good team, you should be able to match up, and when you're getting whether it's out coached or outplayed weekly, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, and also I feel bad. I feel bad for the players too. I mean, they're not all without fault, especially on the defensive side. And,
Right.
this was supposed to be the year. Okay, we put a lot of money in the defensive line. We drafted Vita Vea, and even though he didn't play much, and side note, he is getting in the backfield, but he can't just shed a block for some reason. But I mean, I feel
Hmm.
bad for the players because they had to go through pretty much the whole season with Mike Smith, and then the stories start coming out that the communication was horrible, and Mike Smith would
Right.
completely go away from the install and try to start calling plays that were being called 3 or 4 weeks ago in the middle of a game. And the players were put at such a disadvantage that it makes it look like, okay, we have talented players, but then the questions start coming in like, are they really talented? It's like, no, I think they really are. Now, if Mark Duffner was the defensive coordinator from the beginning of the year to now, who knows? But I honestly think that
Right.
they're playing better by Bucs standards. I mean, let's be honest, they're not playing great,
Mm-hmm.
but by Bucs standards with this team, I think they're playing pretty well on defense. And it just makes me sad for the players who have been here for so long, like Gerald and Levante David, because they have their detractors, and it makes me sad because it's like we wasted these two really good players. We wasted their primes, and if the next coaching staff comes in, who knows? They might look at them players and say, "Okay, they're really good, but they got a big salary. I want my own guys." And then that that
Right.
that pains me to think about because I love them as players and I love them as
Mm-hmm.
as people too. And people that say like, "Okay, Gerald McCoy, he doesn't never impact the game when it matters and things like that." It's like those guys aren't really watching film because I mean, I know he was going up against some backup offensive linemen, but when Gerald's healthy, he's sometimes the only person in the backfield. That means your
Yeah.
defensive ends need to be start doing something better too, not just JPP. So it's never really a fair fight in the criticism of the players that we have. It's like, man,
Mm-hmm.
if you just had like, okay, the Rams, for instance, Jared Goff looked like a bust. The defense, with all that talent they had, still weren't even that great. But then Wade Phillips comes in, Sean McVay comes in. All of a sudden, it's pretty much the same players, besides a few changes here and there. And look at them. You know what I mean? So you can't
Yeah.
tell me that
Mm-hmm.
coaching doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You like a
Oh,
Jeff
yeah,
a
for
Jeff
sure.
a Jeff Fisher team was horrible, but you bring another coach, and all of a sudden, it's like, you know what I mean?
No, no, you're absolutely right. And coaching does matter, and that's why we put a big emphasis on it. It's like, if these players are being told the wrong things and not being put in a spot to succeed, it just makes their job more difficult. And when you're asking, you know, these guys to execute, the most difficult play instead of just giving them a simpler task, making the execution easier, then maybe you could be more consistent. It just kind of it shows how the coaching is just leading this team the wrong way. But that doesn't mean like the players shouldn't be held accountable as well. I think it goes both ways, like we've seen. When you have guys running open, but quarterback's not seeing it, or there's pressure, or vice versa, whatever. So it goes both ways, and I think leadership as a whole on this team definitely needs to be better. I think the culture of just building a winning mindset, and they've been losing for so long now. That culture just creeps in, and unfortunately, I don't know what they're going to do as far as player personnel, whether they let McCoy go or trade him, or vice versa with Levante David, and just try to start, fresh, completely fresh, and build something different. That remains to be seen. But I think it just has to be better from a locker room standpoint to on the field, and just overall game playing, because it definitely matters. I mean, you look at the Saints and what they do. They pretty much have two offensive weapons in Kamara and Michael Thomas, but those guys are open every time. They know how to get those guys open, and that's all Drew Brees does is find them, and they continue to score at a high pace.
Hmm. Yeah, and uh, going into this year, I was sipping the Kool-Aid on, okay, the defense has to be better. They just have to be. They brought in all these new players and blah 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 and things like that. But you have to remember, Justin Evans' second year, Conti goes out. You got Jordan Whitehead, you had MJ Stewart, you had Carlton Davis, and then you've got Brent Grimes, who's clearly declining.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he might not even be declining that much. He might just be over it. It's not fair of me to
Right.
say that sometimes, but you have to go in thinking, okay, even if this defensive line did improve, the secondary was still going to be very young. So even if the defensive line is getting pressure, you're not getting them pressure interceptions or them coverage sacks. It's hard to go hand
Right.
in hand when you have an experienced defensive line and an inexperienced secondary. You know what I mean?
True.
So
No, you're absolutely right.
I was going into the season thinking that it was going to be an uphill battle, but I was just hoping that they could be average enough to where the offense could put up enough points and the defense could hold them, get 2 or 3 punts a game, and then we could capitalize on it. And we haven't been able to do
Right.
that. And and
No.
honestly, I don't know. You can say we should play press more, we should play zone more, which I think you should play press more with young corners because they don't have the instincts and the read and react skills, unless they have a God-given ability to intercept passes and break on routes in zone-based schemes. I think you should play more man. But
No, you're
you know,
absolutely
the,
right.
yeah, and the thing is, we lost Vernon Hargraves, who we've been saying a long time needs to be playing press. He doesn't need to be playing zone. It doesn't matter how long he's been in this league. That's just not his strength. Even if it's not his strength now, it could be later. That's not really a knock on him. Even though he was a first round pick, so that comes with a lot of pressure. But you still have to kind of recoup what you invested in, regardless. And this was the year I was hoping to see Vernon you be used more to his athletic ability. If he's not getting interceptions, at least he's on his guy and he's taken away that route, and the quarterback has to focus on another one. And that's where I was hoping the pressure would come in. And it just seemed like the injuries and the ineptitude of the scheme, Mike Smith, it just starts to snowball, and then that's what ends up being season's almost over, pretty much halfway, and you get that thought in the players' heads that, like, man, we're not gonna fix this thing in time, and that just makes it
Mhm.
so hard to continue watching this Bucks team because no matter what you have hope, no matter the record, but I think we all know by now that I don't think they're gonna go on any type of run like they did in 2016. I don't think they're gonna get interceptions in bunches, turnovers in
Right.
bunches. The offense is going to play mistake-free football. You know what I mean? I don't see it. I'm already looking for the 2019 draft, and that sucks to say in November
Yeah.
because we've rarely played decent December football.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's definitely disappointing. Like you haven't even reached Thanksgiving yet, and you're already, you're starting to look at draft prospects, and it seems like that's the normal tradition with this team now, and it's sad. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't really see it. I see it just continue to be a snowball effect, and I think even Jason Pierre-Paul said that last week, and I think they're going to have, their struggles, this week with the Giants and probably next week when they come back home against San Francisco. So, yeah, it's going to be a challenge, going forward.
So, what do you think about Dirk saying that he's going to stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick this week?
Personally, I was thinking about, maybe they should bring back Jameson and just, let him, develop more and stuff like that and see what he can do. But, personally, I wouldn't mind if he just sits out the rest of the season and kind of stays away from this coaching staff. And I kind of want to see Jameis with a different staff that would run a different style of offense that would allow him to read progressions low to high instead of always looking for the deep ball. And I would just like to see something different and see if that would make an impact for him. But as far as Fitzpatrick, I mean, he is what he is. At times he's awesome, and at other times it's like, what are you doing? But and I guess that's Jameis as well as what we've seen so far.
Well,
But
Jameis
personally,
has, yeah, Jameis has a hero Superman complex to where if the game just isn't going the right way, he just feels like he has to make a play, and
right?
that is sometimes Fitzpatrick too. I mean, they're pretty much similar quarterbacks, and
Hmm.
when I heard Dirk say that he's going to stay with Fitzpatrick, initially I was pretty frustrated. But then again, looking at that box score and just looking at how unlucky some of those things were, even if Fitz did didn't, or even if Fitz didn't see some of the players that were open, I think Dirk felt he owed it to Fitz to give him one more week because that was such a weird game. It
Mhm.
wasn't like Fitz was just losing the game and he was just playing a horrible game. Like Winston was never going to come into that game at any point because of Ryan Fitzpatrick. It was just
Right.
one bad thing after another. So I kind of understood once I sat back and thought about it.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like, I'd say you give Fitz one more week, whether he has a decent game or not. If you lose to the Giants or you lose to the 49ers, you have to put Winston back in. I just don't
Right.
see no other way around that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think, the coaching staff has been talking about, hinting towards that, and that's probably, a strong possibility. My only fear is like if he gets, injured with this offensive line, and now they have more injuries up front this week. Like Jensen might be out, so I just worry about him just continuing to get beat up, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, I don't mind Fitzpatrick being in there because I think the season is kind of moot at this point. So,
Yeah.
we'll see. We will see where it goes.
Yeah, I still kind of want to see. I mean, because this is the first time in Jameis's life that he's been benched for non-football for football reasons. You know what I mean? He's been
True. Yeah.
suspended and he's been things like that. But this is the first time he's been benched, and the benching lasted longer than I expected. As we're going on the third game. We're going
Yes.
on the third game of him being benched. So yeah, I do believe we see him again this year. But I mean, who knows? I just, I just, I just, I just really feel, man, if we lose to the Giants, the Glazers might skip their whole mantra of never firing midseason and just go ahead and make the move. Because the
Hmm.
Giants are a bad team. I don't care if they beat the 49ers. Giants are a bad team. 49ers are a bad
Right.
team right now. Even though Kyle Shanahan does design some really nice plays to get his guys in space. Obviously, that's a
Hmm.
really well coached team with all their losses.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. No, I agree with you. I think if they lose this week, which unfortunately I think is a possibility. But then again, he's been really bad this year as far as quarterback play. If you watch him on tape, I think I put up a clip up on Twitter of them, and he's just missing guys that are wide open. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I mean, if that would be a bad loss, but then again, the Blazers allowed Raheem to endure a 10 game losing streak. So I don't know. We'll see. I think that would be the move to make, and then you just make Monken, the interim, and then I would say probably play Jameis and then see what you got as far as the team overall, and see how they, see which guys play and which guys don't. But
Yep.
we'll find out.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I completely agree. We're fixing to go ahead and wrap up the show here for a little bit, but I do want to say one more thing. I'm excited to see this. I want to see JPP going up against the Giants. I feel like he's foaming at the mouth to get after Eli.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's going to have probably a big game. I think he'll bring a lot of energy, and hopefully he can be a spark for the defense and get them
Mm-hmm.
on a good track. But again, it's just both sides of the ball coming together and playing 4 quarters. Like that's really all I want to see. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see us have one complete game, and
Right.
hopefully that's this week.
How awesome would it be if the game ended up being really close at the end and there's still about, I don't know, let's just say a minute on the clock. Giants are forced to punt. They punt it to Deshaun Jackson, and he takes it all the way to the house and puts a dagger in their heart again, just like he did with the Eagles. That would be awesome. That would be a storybook ending.
That would be pretty cool. It'd be yeah, that would be very what's the word I'm looking for? Uh I don't know,
Poetic.
ironic or yeah, poetic. Yeah, poetic's a better word. Yeah. So that'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
you know,
I'm sure
uh,
he'll I'm sure he'll return some this week.
Dirk Cutter actually said, and this is a thing a lot of the fans have been asking and kind of wondering, like, why is Humphreys or anyone else back there returning punts or kicks when Deshaun's obviously way faster and more shifty than them? Dirk
Hmm.
said, Dirk said, and I didn't even know it worked like this. I thought you were pretty much assigned this week or that week. Dirk said Deshaun's got the green light to return punts or kicks whenever he wants. He just picks and chooses his moments. I was kind of shocked by that because I really didn't know
Hmm.
that that's how it worked. All this time we've been giving
Yeah,
Dirk Cutter grief or the special teams coach grief for not putting him in there, but really it's Deshaun that's kind of taking himself out of that position. Do you think that's because he's not involved in the game plan as much on the offense? So he's like, I'm not gonna put myself out there on one of the most dangerous, parts of the game, or what is your thought on that?
yeah.
Because it was kind of puzzling to me.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, and that's another thing, like, I point to his coaching. Like, if you want a guy back there, you make him go
Yeah, for
do it.
real.
Like,
Why would you even give him the option?
yeah, you're the head coach, and that's kind of where I point to, like, the culture in the locker room, and like, you need to demand more out of your players. Like, if
Hmm.
he's the best option, then you need to make sure he's out there. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely probably towards Deshaun, and maybe it's Deshaun revolting back as far as he's just being asked to run, deep routes every time he's out there. So maybe he's just getting exhausted. I don't know. he's a,
It's
he's a
true.
he's a prime athlete. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I would put him out there if he's your best option. You got to put your best guys out there.
Couldn't agree more, man. Well, Michael, it was great to talk to you.
Yeah,
We're
for
gonna
sure.
try to yeah, we're gonna try to do this some more. I try to I used to do the podcast by myself a lot, and I got tired of kind of listening to myself talk and also talking to myself. So I've been trying to have a lot more people on the show. The fans seem
Okay.
to enjoy it more also because they don't like to just hear me talk either. It's nice to have someone to bounce your ideas off of. So if you're up for it, man, we'll try to make this a weekly thing. I know you're busy. You got your own podcast. You break
Hmm.
down Bucks film, but I mean, if it's good to
Yeah.
talk. It's good to talk Bucks football with someone who actually watches the film like I do. Even if we're not experts, things like that, we still kind of know what we're seeing. And it's just good to talk it with you. And I hope we can make it a weekly thing or as often as you can do it, man.
Yeah, yeah, man. I'll let you know. Yeah, definitely. And if you're available, we'll try to get you on our show as well. So,
You
uh,
you do you
yeah,
do a
I mean,
show
it's
with
all.
Gene, right?
I do. Yeah, I do a Wednesday night show with Gene Thomas, and then I also my own podcast I do with my good friend Mark Ramirez, and we do uh we do about two shows a week for that, and that's up on iTunes and all the other podcast uh avenues that are available. So yeah, I mean, if you want to be on our show, and we'll try, we're trying to get guests on as well, so we're working on that. But we'll definitely try to see if we can get you on.
Okay, buddy. Well, it was fun
All right,
talking to you, man, and we'll try to set something up in the future. But I'm gonna go ahead and end it with a go Bucks, and I'll talk to you later. All right.
all right, man. All right, take care.